Hey everyone, Tim Anderson here, aka Renfell. Welcome back. You got me first thing on a Monday morning with a fresh rant. Angry bearded white dude rants about different topics is becoming a thing here on my channel. I'm just gonna roll with it. Today we're gonna be talking about how Amazon is destroying all of our most beloved franchises. Look at the butchery of what they've done to Wheel of Time and Rings of Power. But Amazon has also put out some really good adaptations over the years. So what's going on here? Let's talk about it. If this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. Hopefully you like this video enough to smash that like button and get to the end. Subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get updates like this, and continue to stay updated with all the things going on here on this YouTube channel. And don't forget, we have a Discord. Links are down below. Let's dive into today's topic. If I can learn how to talk, I've not had enough coffee yet. So there's a brilliant article over here at InsideHook.com about how the Wheel of Time gets plenty right, but one crucial thing wrong. Now, this actually dives only into the Wheel of Time. I've already kind of done enough ranting over the past few weeks about Rings of Power, but that's in here. One of the first things that I can't stand is the fact that before we even get into the article, we're immediately seeing that Amazon's new series on Prime was being hailed as the next Game of Thrones. And I have a huge bone to pick with that. I've ranted about this in some of my Monday Musings episodes, and I've definitely got an angry bearded white dude rant video coming up at some point in the near future talking about how I can't stand how everything gets compared to Game of Thrones. I think it's ridiculous. But one of the things I want to talk about here was you've got Wheel of Time, which is a huge, huge, huge series. I mean, way beyond in terms of sheer volume of book content. People will often go, oh, Lord of the Rings, Tolkien had all this stuff and 40 years of world building and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all true. But if you think about what he had in terms of published novel length content, we're talking The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion, History of Middle Earth, The Lost Tales, all that stuff. That's like supplemental material, and it's more genealogy and notes and so on and so forth than it was actual novel type content, which PS is, by the way, where they're getting their whole "we're gonna write the novel that Tolkien never wrote" part of the Rings of Power things. But with Robert Jordan's Wheel of Times, we had an entire book series, 11 of which were written by Robert Jordan, and the last three of which were written or co-written to some degree by Brandon Sanderson, launching his career. And one of the biggest issues is trying to adapt a massive body of work that spans way more content than you could ever realistically put into a TV show. Because even if you're giving the show a run of say 13 to 15 episodes, like Outlander, I think has done 15, 16 episodes per season, and I think it does a fairly good job. Although some people nitpick here and there, but the the showrunners have coordinated heavily with the author. That's not an Amazon show, but I'm using that as an example of a good adaptation. But that's not the case here. In this case, we're getting a showrunner who has come in and taken The Wheel of Time and brought it down from 14 books and said, we're going to try to cram this into hopefully maybe 8 seasons, but we're only going to do less than 10 episodes per season. So suddenly you're like, wait, what? How are you condensing all of that time frame into this tiny little section? And that's the same thing they're doing with Rings of Power. And they're condensing thousands of years of history into this tiny little time frame to fit into their 5 season budget. And with Wheel of Time, they're hoping for an 8 season show. I still don't see and don't agree that you can fit something as profoundly complex as the Wheel of Time into such a tight framework. It needs room to breathe. There are stories that need time to tell. And there was a whole bunch of stuff wrong with the Wheel of Time adaptation. I was not on the bandwagon of hating on YouTube when I watched the show. I was watching it. I did review each individual episode, but I didn't do like an overall rant series about it. But it drove me nuts. Chris watched it, liked it because she had never read the books, and I was sitting there on the couch trying not to be a book purist. And then by the end of the show, I realized, holy shit, I am a book purist because that was absolute hot garbage. And here's the 500 reasons why. This is a great article that talks about a lot of the things that Wheel of Time got wrong, particularly how the first episode sucked ass compared to, say, the intro to the Lord of the Rings films by Peter Jackson. And it's all very good. But really, I want to pivot now really quick and say that for all of the hate that we are pouring onto Amazon, because absolutely the Wheel of Time sucked. It sucked so bad. I watched one of my most beloved franchises get absolutely thrown into the mud, pissed on, stomped on, other things happened to it, and I was left at the end of the Wheel of Time season 1 just like double face palm and weeping at how viscerally they had just gutted probably it's definitely up there in my top 3 favorite fantasy series of all time. Tolkien is up there, Lord of the Rings is up there, and I'm watching the Rings of Power follow the same exact path, which drives me nuts because if you have ever watched The Man in the High Castle, which was one of Amazon's earliest adaptations, I loved this show. Now I know some people said it's not it's not a perfect adaptation of the novel from the 60s, but it is a very good adaptation. I also think one of the reasons that it was such a successful adaptation is that it's being adapted from a single book. And I think that's one of the problems they're running into with the Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings is that with both of those franchises, you are dealing with book series that have thousands of years of history involved and dozens of characters and all this other stuff, and it's really hard if not impossible to condense all of that down into a show that is worthy of an adaptation because eventually you're going to have to pull so much out of it to get it down into that runtime allotment because of budget restraints that you're just not going to be able to pull anything off that's realistically appealing to the fans. Even Peter Jackson's films for the Lord of the Rings films, love them or hate them, um, I'm in the I love them camp. Took a lot of things out and added a lot of things in, but they still ended up being very good films, I feel. Man in the High Castle had the opposite um, problem in the sense that they only had a single novel to go from, and they kind of had to expand that so that they could create a multi-season arc out of the show. I thought they did a brilliant job. If you have never watched Man in the High Castle, I think it's worth your time, and it's definitely an example in my mind of an adaptation gone right, and it came from Amazon Studios. So it's not like everything they touch is shit. And then you get to The Boys, which, again, another adaptation, adapted from a comic book. The Boys is arguably one of the best, if not the best, superhero television show I have ever seen. I have yet to meet a person, and if there's someone here, drop it in the comments below. I have yet to meet anyone in my personal life or in my Discord or in my circle of friends or the people I game with. I've yet to meet anyone who hates this show. Everyone loves The Boys. It is this show that has absolutely taken the world by storm, and it's just a crazy version of what superheroes unchecked looks like. And it's extremely well done. But again, they're adapting a comic book medium and expanding upon it. And a comic book medium is already sort of created for that visual and short format um, medium, so to speak, because a comic book has only so many pages and they can only do so many so many prints in a run, so on and so forth. So it's not like a novel or a series of novels where you've got thousands and thousands of pages to adapt. It's very short and concise, which is the reason why it's so easy to adapt. It's also why I think they've done such a good job. And then we get to The Expanse, which did not start off on Amazon, but it did move to Amazon over the last few seasons. And The Expanse is another example of a series that worked hand in hand with the showrunners and worked really hard to take as much as they could from the books and put that into the show. Again, it's not 100% faithful. You cannot be 100% faithful to books when you're doing an adaptation for film or TV shows. You have to cut things here and there. Certain things might not make sense. They might need to be portrayed differently in a visual manner. I understand all of that, but I have only heard a couple of people giving any complaints about The Expanse. Almost everyone I've ever talked to says this is one of the best science fiction shows they've watched since like the reimagined Battlestar Galactica, which in and of itself was an adaptation, which if you remember did something that at the time was extremely controversial because they changed Starbuck from a man to a woman, and that change was something that everyone on the internet was sure was going to ruin the show, and yet it didn't. P.S. That's not to say that I approve of all of the gender swapping and everything they're doing with Rings of Power, but that's a different subject entirely, which I've talked about in another video, so go check that out if you want to. The point I'm making here is that Amazon, for all of the wrong they've done to the Wheel of Time and all of the wrongs it appears they're doing to the Rings of Power, have put out some extremely good adaptations over the years. So I just don't get what the frack they are doing with Wheel of Time and the Rings of Power. The only logical explanation I can wrap my head around at this point is that Bezos is so obsessed with having a number one. This is the thing. He wants a record-breaking worldwide number one hit that beats Game of Thrones. He wants that so bad that he's throwing ridiculous amounts of money into productions around major franchises, excuse me, trying to it's like throwing a wad of gum at the wall and you're hoping to see which one sticks. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the approach they're taking, and that's not the right approach because here's the thing. If you actually cared about the source material and took the time to work on creating faithful adaptations, you would get the fan base hyped up and you wouldn't have the furor and the uproar that you've had around the Wheel of Time and Rings of Power. So, at the end of the day, that's where I'm kind of looking at things is that despite the fact that everyone says, hey, Amazon's ruining all of our favorite franchises, maybe, but at the same time, they do have a track record of having put out really good shows and really good adaptations over the years. So I don't know why they're screwing up some of our most favorite ones so badly. Love to hear your thoughts, not thoughts. Love to hear your thoughts. Drop them down in the comments below. And of course, don't forget if you've gotten to this point and you like the video, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you get updates like this in the future. And don't forget to join our Discord. Links are down below. You can also join the channel if you would like to support what we do here. And if you want to go above and beyond, you can check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/wandering hermits, where we are building the fantasy world of the Weave and the Void. Check all that stuff out. See you in the next episode. Peace out, everybody.